recording சொல்லு கரெக்டா பண்ணலன்னு சொல்லு. Any more questions on aperture and depth of field? Anybody having a SLR, can you show them how to change the focal length with a zoom lens? Zoom பண்ணி காட்டுங்க. Probably he hasn't seen. Did you see that? Huh. Any more questions on aperture, depth of field and exposure? Because it's very important. Next, I'll be going to shutter. Depth of field, F. It's a designation. It's called a F stop. See, each the difference between one stop to other is called a F stop. Yeah, 2.8 to 4 is one stop. 4 to 5.6 is one full stop. 8 to 11 is one full stop. Between 8 and 11, if I have a 9, then it's a half stop. Traditionally, these were the stops, so we still follow a lot of tradition. Like Peter was explaining about the nautical mile. Yeah. Can you be a little louder? Lesser in the sense. F number, the lesser it becomes, the background becomes softer. Precisely. Softer. Yeah. Softer. Yeah, that's softer. If you increase the focal length, you will get a blurred background. So, yes. Yeah, I'll in the next when it comes to the shutter speed, I'll tell you why it's called the lens speed. So it's a related term. Unless shutter speed is there, there's no speed for the lens. It's called a lens speed. For example, f2 are called fast lenses. I'll tell you why it's a fast lens. Focal length. Focal length. F2.8. If I'm telling it's 100 f2.8 lens, that means 100 is the focal length, and the maximum aperture will be 2.8. The combination of focal length and aperture. You have a camera, right? No problem. Why? 0.8 point and shoot doesn't have lens specification or what? It's a Carl Zeiss lens. Vario tester is a zoom lens. Vario is zoom. So it's basically a 2.7 mm to no. Yeah, it's basically f2.7 to f5.7 lens and focal length ranging from f4.7 mm to 18.8 mm. See, these focal lengths are 35 mm focal lengths. The actual focal length for this camera might be around it's a 26 mm wide, it says. So 5.7 mm in 35 mm, that is in traditional terms, represents 26 mm in this camera. I'll tell you why it is. That's something called field of view cropping factor. I'll come to that. Street photograph. Huh? Bike. Wow, bike one. Bike wala. Somebody who is not able to understand, better throw a slipper now, not at the end of the session. Yeah. See, I actually lifted this picture from a web. I would say for this kind of picture, it should be easily a 35 mm focal length. And in the first picture, the left hand one, it could be a f2.8 or f1.8 lens. The second one, he could have shot it at 11 or f16. Yeah, right side is 11 or 16. You have a camera, right? Which camera you use? Huh? Nikon? D80. In the practical session, you will see everything before your eyes. Don't worry. Yeah,
Aperture is something opening and closing type of thing.
correct.
What really hinder the vision, what we are seeing through the lens?
Didn't get your question. Come again.
What it really block the vision, what we are seeing, because it is
The mirror
light,
lifts.
right?
Mirror lifts. In the SLR camera, when you click the shutter button, it completely allows the light to the sensor. That time the mirror lifts. Only because the mirror is at 45-degree angle. Only because the mirror is at 45-degree angle here, you are getting this light to the prism and then to the eye. If it lifts like this in the second case,
Can you tell me where is the place of aperture in this?
aperture is in the lens. It will be at somewhere at this point. Just open. Just give your lens. Can you see
It's,
the small circle inside?
yeah.
That's the aperture.
The aperture is very small. The CCD can be exposed like only a small opening, right?
CCD will never get exposed and the current will never go through the CCD until you shoot in SLR.
When you shoot with a small opening, what you, I mean, if I look at the small opening, I cannot see the whole wall, right?
Yeah, that's why you need a higher ISO. When the light becomes lesser, that's why you need a higher ISO.
Back to light, when I'm talking about the size of what you can take in.
Size of the image will be same. See, in a lens, when the image is formed, it is like this. So it goes inside and expands. So yeah, it will form the same image. I'll show you. See how if you want to see the squinting, right? போடு ஒரு F போடியா 36. Where is the depth of field preview button? Yeah, fine. பார்த்துட்டே இருங்க. It will close. Are you able to see the aperture closing? It's called depth of field preview button. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, the lens presents its maximum aperture so that you can see the scene brightly. Depth of field preview is like you can make the camera squint its size. Then you will see the real depth of field. It's called depth of field preview button. Killer. Okay, we'll move to shutter speed. So in aperture, how it affected exposure was by presenting the area. When you open more light. When you open less light. Here, shutter speed is like I open the door, keep for a particular amount of time and then close it. So here it's a time. There it was the area, here it's a time. So for example, shutter speeds, classical speeds can be start from 30 seconds. It will become half, 15 seconds, 8 seconds. If you actually see, the apertures are also becoming half only, half in area. But because of that quadrilateral, parabolic relation, it's becoming 2 power something. So it is not a linear relationship here. It is a geometric progression here. That's why you are not able to relate the numbers easily. Yeah, but here it's a direct measurement of time. So it is just half. 30 by 2, 15. 15 by 2. It's 8 seconds because of classical reasons like you cannot have a decimal floating point. Those days they weren't able to have. Today our cameras can give any time. So that's why. So normally if you see the double inverted commas, That means it's a full second. The same way you use degrees, minutes, and second in a map. Same seconds here. The moment it becomes less than a second, it's 1 by 2, 1 by 4, 1 by 8. I simply designate as 2, 4, or 8. I will no more use my 1 by 2. So that is why in the shutter speed, you'll always find 15, 30, 60, 125. 125 is one of the classical shutter speeds actually. Yeah, for flash photography, if somebody who doesn't know flash photography, somebody who works in a studio for 30 donkey years, he'll use 125 as shutter speed. I'll tell you why. There's a flash synchronizing speed. So these are speeds like. The point is, whenever I reduce the speed by one stop, that is from 250 to 125, it will become easy for me if the same amount of light is getting reduced from 16 to 11. One by 125 to 250 is actually doubling or halving, right? So to get the same effect of reduced light or increased light in aperture, what should I logically do? Half the area. Half the area, double the area. So that is exactly what happens here.
So greater the aperture, smaller the shutter speed. So the whole.
There's a combination. There's a combination. Exposure is a combination. I'm coming to that. I'll come in the next section. So the point is, yeah, I'll repeat again. The difference between one stop here is half or doubling the time. Here the difference is half of doubling the area. So for some reasons of depth of field, I want to say increase my aperture from f4 to 5.6 to get a better depth of field. At f4, my shutter speed was 1 by 125. But to get a better depth of field, I am using f5.6. Then what should be, and it gives a correct exposure. What should be my shutter speed then? How much? At f4, I am repeating again. At f4, the combination of aperture and shutter speed gave me a perfect exposure. That is, it is neither bright nor dark. It's giving a beautiful image. So it's f4 and 1 by 125 seconds. For a reason of getting a better depth of field, what Vishal Ramdas wants to do is, he wants to increase the aperture or the f number from f4 to f5.6. Then what will be the shutter speed? Correct. If you can understand this, that is bloody what is called as the theory of reciprocity. So it reciprocates. It reciprocates. Like when I'm able to change something here to achieve something. For example, Peter is diving from a cliff, and I want to catch him very sharp. My reading is at f8, it's 125. I want to make it double sure, and he told me, unless you catch a sharp picture of me, I'm going to push you out. So I am increasing shutter speed 2 stops to 500. My original reading was f8. So what should I do to get a perfect exposure now? What is the aperture number? சொல்லுங்க சும்மா ரெடியூஸ் எல்லாம் சொல்லக்கூடாது. f8 to 5.6, 5.6 to f4. So I should shoot at f4. But sometimes what happens with these cheap lenses is, in a particular focal length, in 55, for example, in that lens, you will not be able to get less than, open aperture than 5.6. I can either go to f8, I can go to f5.6, I'll never get f4. That's why you should get an expensive lens. You can go up to. Now Brijesh says, I'm going to make a double faster jump. You better make it 1000. I should bring it to f2.8. So if I don't have a lens which is able to support that, I'll not be able to get the speed. So that's why f2.8 becomes a fast lens. Fast lens.
But can you always have like an f2 at even very high speed, shutter speed, or depends the opening is related to the shutter
It's the exposure, Peter. Like, see, another thing is a thumb rule I should tell you is, say you are, I'm assuming everybody is using a 35 full frame SLR, but most of the SLRs are APS-C size. I'll come to that point later. Let's say it's a full frame SLR. If I'm shooting a picture at 100 the thumb rule says if you are doing handheld photography, your minimum shutter speed should be 1 by 100 to reduce shake. Please remember, guys, what prevents shake? Handshake is simply a thumb rule. It should be minimum 1 by focal length of the lens. So in compact cameras, it's very difficult to judge, but I'll still give you ways and means to judge that speed. It's still possible. Once you get used to that camera for 2 or 3 days, you'll be still able to judge the speed you should be using. And second thing is the program modes and automatic modes in compact cameras take care of this. That's why most often you find when you're using automatic modes, you'll definitely will not fail taking a bad picture. But you will also avoid a very beautiful picture because you will take for granted the depth of field, everything. You will not be choosing anything. So please remember, it's 1 by focal length. If I'm using a 100 lens on a full frame camera, it should be minimum 1 by 100. For a Canon camera, the field of view cropping factor is 1.6, therefore it's 1 by 160. For a Nikon, it's 1.5. Normal Nikons. I'm not talking about full frame like D700, D3X S or 1DS Mark II or 5D. I'm not talking about those cameras. I'm talking about cameras like that's a 500D, 550D, that's a 550D or a 60D. It'll become multiple. The advantage of that is if I'm using a 100 on that lens on that camera, it will give the same field of view as a 160 lens. Advantage for bird photography. I'm using a 24 lens on the same camera for temple photography. The 24 becomes 35, and I lose that wide angle perspective.
But if you have a 400 lens, then what is the maximum shutter speed to be stable?
In a full frame camera, it's 400, 1 by 400 minimum. This is when you are not using a tripod. When you are using a handheld photography. If you are having an image stabilization on the lens, Canon IS or in Nikon VR or Sigma optical stabilization OS, if you are having these things, it will give 1 or 2 stops. So for 1 by 400, what will be 1 or 2 stops like? 1 by 200 can go up to 1 by 125. It's a very good lens with nice optical stabilization. Or you can go up to 200. But because of this cropping factor, everything, 300 would be a good speed. Higher shutter speed, no problem. But a higher shutter speed, it will capture within a fraction of a second. So, suppose if you are jumping or running, I'll simply freeze you. Somebody is jumping here and I want to freeze him in air. 1 by 250 seconds should be sufficient to freeze any natural human movement. If he's going on jet plane, don't ask me. Any natural human. Kya? For? See, when it comes to compact cameras for these things, they give something called scene modes, sport mode. It will automatically keep the high shutter speeds high.
What about
Light painting. Light painting. Light painting, you use a bulb mode, that is bulb shutter, that is you keep the shutter continuously open. And dark surface you paint with a torch. At the end of it, just release it. Release the shutter. Whatever you have painted would get recorded. Simply do something. Go on top of Gemini flyover. Open your shutter for 5 seconds. You'll see all the light rays of vehicles. Huh? I know what you're talking about. Hey, what happened here? Hey, லேப்டாப்ல இருந்து காப்பி பண்ணதானே நம்ம காப்பி பண்ணோம். No. Which is the file you copied? Hmm? Can, yeah, yeah.